Welcome to Earth, a Love Story. I'm your host, Robin Lassiter. Before we get into this episode, a little bit of housekeeping. I made a thing. I have put together an audiobook of Earth, a Love Story. And for those of you who've been around for a while, you know that I read my entire book on the first 15 episodes of this podcast, and that will remain available and free forever. I strongly feel that this spoken book needs to exist out there in the world where it can find who it needs to find in an organic way through the medium of this podcast. Also, I was called to put these episodes together into an audiobook that you can purchase and download and keep forever. So if you loved listening to my book and want to offer an energy exchange or want to share it with someone, this is a great way to do that. Info and links are in the show notes, my friends. Okay, now on to this episode. My guest today is Diederik Rijkens. I found D during a sleepless night where he popped up on my YouTube feed, and he has a YouTube channel called the Projector Project, which gives framework and support to other projectors in human design. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't worry, we're going to get into it. I felt immediate resonance and gratitude for the guidance for projectors. I am a projector. And for any of you projectors out there, this episode is for you. You're really going to love it. We do talk about a lot of the other types in human design, and our conversation is wide-ranging, bringing in the importance of ethical communication. You guys know that I'm on my soapbox about that right now. The portals of grief and rage, which is a new one for me, and the nature and necessity of play. We also talk about what's coming up for all of us as we approach 2027. If you are a human design nerd like me, you're going to love this. And if you're not, you just might be by the end of this talk. Please enjoy my conversation with Diederik Rijkens.
Well, thank you for having reached out and connecting. I know we chatted briefly now 2 weeks ago, and I immediately felt a resonance as well, which is such a blessing with the YouTube, especially as a projector, knowing that the voice carries the frequency of the aura. So it's a way for people to find resonance if there is resonance. And that's such a blessing in this time, right? So as far as my story, particularly when it comes to human design, so I'm 37. I am Dutch, meaning I'm from the Netherlands. My parents from the Netherlands. I was born under a Dutch flag, as I always say. I don't know if I'm from here, but that is when I say I'm from here, I'm human, but we're all very much more than just human. And I would say my life is divided into two parts, the way I see it. One leading up to my 30th birthday and one afterwards. And I say that because just before so 6 months before my 30th birthday, I quit my corporate job. So I had been on let me get my bachelor's and then let me get my master's. And I got the chance to return to Texas. That's where we lived as a family in my teens. And I decided to go back and I worked. I never thought I'd work in oil and gas, but there I was in an office doing for an oil and gas company. And I ended up doing my master's there, and I really devoted and committed myself to that. I was like, this is how I want to do it. So I went there. I got the scholarships I could. I never was really scholastic. My academic record wasn't the greatest up to then. And then I was just like, I'm doing this for me.
Mm.
And I did really well. And I was really happy to know that I can do it. If I really set my mind to it, I can do it. But then lo and behold, I was kind of like, this feels empty. Like, I'm making good money. I've got the flat screen TV. I've got my car, but I get 10 days of vacation and I feel like I'm being squeezed at work. It's not how much I do, it's how many hours I put my butt on the chair. And I was just looking around at the people that I was working with and oftentimes found myself in those large layouts, the open layouts. And I was just, especially as a projector, single definition, open. It was just like, my goodness, the onslaught of energies, but I could feel people and I could just see there was so much untapped potential. and people not being put into their strengths. And that was always my driving force. Like what's personal about? What's their inner fire and how can I help fan that flame? And so I got into like Myers-Briggs type indicator was a big one, MBTI, the 16 personalities. That one always really resonated with me. So I'd go around the office doing that with people and sitting one-on-one and doing all of that. And then, fast forward to being in that job. I just like, this isn't it. I was struggling. I was gaining weight. And then the visa lottery happened in the United States. Since I'm a European citizen, I was in the lottery. I didn't get it. So I had to leave. So the company moved me to back to the Netherlands, which is the first time I was back as like an adult. Like really, I felt. And after a year, I was just struggling again. I was like, I need to go. I'd saved a little bit of money. So I had some space and time. So I got a life coach. And this is, let's say, beginning of September of 2016. And so I had a couple months of just going to the gym every day, really spacious living. There was nothing really on the agenda. I was eating healthy, cooking my own food. Like I said, going to the gym, having these sessions with my life coach. And it just felt really good. And then in November, I'd broken up with my girlfriend at the time. So that had been like, hmm, how long were we together? I think 2.5 years at the time. And I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna love me. I'd always been looking for someone to love me, so I give permission for me to love myself. I was like, no, 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 no. I'm happy to have this time to love myself. And that's usually when people come to you, right? Whatever, especially as a projector, when you don't chase something, you magnetize it to you.
Mm.
And so in December, as part of this package of life coaching, there was a human design session with a person that's been doing it for 25 years, who knew Ra, who was taught by Ra. So Ra Uru being the person that mm, received the transmission of human design in 1987. And so that really like, oh my God, here it is. So I like dove headfirst into it. And then fast forward 2 months or the next month, January 27th, my birthday. And just before then, I had met someone and online and it clicked immediately. And even when I saw her profile, there was something about it. And we started talking and I just could not sleep. I didn't sleep Sunday night, didn't sleep Monday night, didn't sleep Tuesday night. And I felt like something was happening. And I kept seeing this. It wasn't like I saw it in front of me, but it was almost like I'd seen it 3 seconds ago. And it was like kind of like etched into my visuals, was just like this being of light, like golden being. And I didn't understand what it was. I couldn't understand. It felt good, but I didn't
Mm.
understand it. And fast forward then to that Friday was like I finally slept Wednesday because what I felt like every time I was honest with this person, every time we were talking, there was something that came up. I'm like, ooh, I don't want to say this because I'm afraid that maybe I'll get rejected if I say it.
Mm.
But I said it anyway. And I kept doing that and I kept doing that. And something kept opening up in me. And then fast forward to Friday on my birthday, I had what I understand now is a out of the blue Kundalini awakening. Like I saw the snake wrap itself. Like I didn't understand what it was. I just felt I was speaking about things I'd never spoken about. I felt so like on. Like even my friend at one point during my birthday steps back. He's like, "Dude, you're like on. Like you're switched on. Like something's going on." And it felt like all of the chakras were aligned. And everybody I was talking to, it just felt like I could be in my heart. There was no fear. People were in tears just because it felt like I was touched by grace, is what it feels like. And it's interesting because for those that are interested in gene keys as well, gene key 22 came up a lot in that there's this being touched by grace and this initiation into a deeper life, into a spiritual life. And so 24 hours later, I remember I was at my mom's at the time and walking into the dunes, and I just like, wow. I remember just all of a sudden the fear creeping back in. And I just remember even talking to myself and being like, you know what? I'm so grateful I got to experience this this grace, this love for 24 hours that if it never happened again, I'm okay with that. And I meant it. And I shot right back up. So I was
Mm.
like, okay, this is about honesty. And then, of course, I saw these images of snakes, and I also saw like balls of light hanging in people's chests, like right here. So I remember having this table of all my cousins and my friends in front of me. It was like 18 people for my birthday, and I just saw these balls of light hanging everywhere. And I was like, am I going crazy? And I was like, well, I might be, but all the interactions I'm having have been so positive and have been received so positively that if I'm crazy, well, I can maybe imagine what I'm seeing, but I cannot force a reaction from someone. And I was getting these reactions. And so ever since then, it's been this, and it's a tricky part too. When you get into those spaces, they're so amazing. You want to go back. So it's this, so this is now, this is January of 2017. So it's been a while. So after that, I returned back into working life after a year. I was dating the person I had ended up meeting just before all or during this, and just learning a lot of lessons throughout that, Robin. Like it's been such a journey. We stayed together until beginning of August last year when we consciously decoupled, and we ended up going to Costa Rica for 3.5 years. That was a huge part as well. Like at one point, I was working in a corporate environment again, this time recruitment, which was much more my liking, but the way that they worked just wasn't working for me. Again, open layout. It was about the hours. And I realized, especially as a projector, I got more done when I called in sick, but still wanted to work because I cared about the people I was helping out and what I was doing. I got more done in half a day calling in sick and working from home than working at the office. But it was that thing like, well, you got to put in your time for 4 years and then maybe we can talk. And then I would look at the people that have been there for 4 years and they were crushed, So it's just like this not understanding why we have these corporate cultures. And I'm talking about this because that's very much where I'm at now. So while I was in Costa Rica, we did a lot of, that's where I found my tribe. Costa Rica was my tribe. People, you know, I find, and I don't know if you're familiar with this and just people that are listening to whenever you're, in America, Canada, or Europe, it's like when you meet someone, it's like, oh, what do you do? What do you do for work? In Costa Rica, that little town we were at, it never happened. It just like you could have the most profound conversations. You would see each other all the time, and then after like 20 conversations, 3 months in, they'll kind of look at you and then they'll cock their head, they'll head crooked, like, what do you do anyway? Like it just wasn't important. And I find that that's such a thing that, people are looking for. So as part of being there, I organized a lot of like chant circles, full moon circles, human design workshops, gene keys workshops. We set up an initiative to do all kinds of workshops. The idea of like, hey, we're all here to share something. And if there's something you want to do, let us know and we'll put it on our calendar and we'll invite people to come and listen and share and be in it together and be growing. A lot of people, especially when the lockdowns happened, shifted into doing what they really want to be doing and they've always meant to be doing. So this was a beautiful place where people got to test things out and they got to, yeah, just really lean into that. So that was wonderful, but as a projector, I kind of overdid it a little bit. I had to pull back, and it's just been this dance of like, how do I support my tribe, be supported in return, and as a projector in human design, knowing that our energy fluctuates quite a bit. Particularly, for example, in human design, I have my heart center defined. So my energy comes in a pulse. Now, right now, I'm in a down pulse. It's like a two energy and two, no energy. Two, two, two. So right now, I've been overdoing it. I can feel it. And so it's like you gotta slow down. And that's where the trust and the faith comes in that I don't have to force, the power versus force. It's just in the power and magnetism in knowing that it's coming and being honest with myself. And, the thing I'm doing right now, the story is that, where you find me now on what is it? Oh yeah, Friday the 13th.
That's right.
That's right. Friday, September 13th is I'm about to go into a 10-day Vipassana silent retreat, which I'm really excited about exploring that because I know how quickly my life shifts when I give it space. Like I've had moments of I call them moments of power and grace where I literally feel the fabric of reality shift around me. I can feel it. And inviting more of that and also surrendering because I found so it's that like how much in control are we really and just surrendering. And I love the human design for that. And that's why ever since I've been introduced to it, the last 3 years, I've been educating myself in human design, working with people one-on-one, working in partnership, and now working with people in a working environment. So now I get to go back after all these years. I get to go back to these environments and be like, guys, like we're all meant to operate differently. Let's celebrate the differences. Let's understand how we can communicate with each other in a way that truly allows us to be not only seen and recognized, but be in our zone of genius, as I call it, and make the hierarchy horizontal instead of vertical. So just because you're a manager and you might be accountable for what the department produces, that you can sit around the table and be open and honest in your communication and not be afraid that you have to keep that distance in communication because of hierarchy and rank and all of that. And it's very interesting as I work with people in the space one-on-one. Our work life and our at home life, our private life, it all meshes together anyway. We can't hang our humanity at the coat rack when we come in.
Mm.
And so it's how do we bring more of that in so that we can truly thrive? And that's where I'm at now. Like, how can I do that in a way that I can truly support my tribe? The tribe that's all over the world, the people that resonate with me, the people that when they hear my voice, they're like, there's something about this dude. So that's where you find me now. I'm traveling the world. One of the images that came to me was, and this kind of this deeper knowing is that I'm here to visit the tribe around the world
Mm.
and make contact physically on location. So in the last 12 months, that's been, of course, Costa Rica, retreat center in Spain, Anchorage, Alaska, where I'm working with two businesses, and there's a retreat center there as well. And now Calgary, where a lot of the people from Costa Rica, funny enough, outside of Costa Rica, outside of the little town Samara in Costa Rica, most of the people find themselves in Calgary. So I'm here now with one of my main contacts in Calgary here. I'm staying with her. We're helping each other, supporting each other, working towards sharing our gifts in a way that is for the highest good of all involved. So that's me, Rowan.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I love it. And I wrote down, I don't often do that, but I was like jotting down things like crazy because there's so many threads that I want to tug on all of that. So thank you. Yeah, it's just, first of all, like I'm very inspired. It's very inspiring. And one of the pieces that I've been exploring and experiencing since I started deconditioning, which I'm not sure if I knew about human design before I started kind of pulling back. I had a corporate job for 15, I was a medical practice manager for 15 years and completely burned out. Like I stayed maybe 3 years too long. Like I was really white knuckling it and I couldn't get enough space and enough downtime. And so taking that leap of faith and steady paycheck that I'd had for all that time and like pulling away from it and just surrendering and saying, well, what if I do a big trust fall and just see what happens? I have so many people in my life who love and support me. I'm not going to, I'm going to be okay, really. So can I take this leap of faith? And um, so with the deconditioning piece and you talking about trust and not forcing, and my experience with that has been that it's very, for me, it edged into like survival, when I, deconditioning from what I call the overculture pulling back from the way that things are done, trusting that it can be done a different way. And for me, it brought up all this survival stuff. Like, can I survive? Will I be alone? Is this possible to do? So that's been an enormous part. And I still absolutely find edges of that. Right now, I'm leaning into trusting the body, which I've also heard, in your YouTube videos, you talk about the body and connecting with the body. And I think it's such a massive piece of all of this like natal intelligence in the body that, again, kind of the overculture and the way things just are in the world. I didn't know the language of it, even though I grew up, very connected to nature and connected to my body. I just cut all of that off. And now the body is coming back online as well. So trusting the body, trusting that if if the body has an impulse to do something, that I can trust that. And it comes right up against my conditioning, which says like, that's not okay. Or you're going to I don't know if this is a projector thing as well, but I can feel into all of these people who are like listening, watching, paying attention, and like, oh, I'm going to upset that person, or I'm going to fall off of an edge there with that person, and deconditioning to that, coming back to the body over and over and over again. So that was a lot of me just speaking in relation to what you spoke about. I have a lot more to say, but if you want to reflect on any of that, if it brings anything up for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you sharing and, you know, taking that leap of faith, stepping out of that corporate environment that is just asking for quantity over quality often. And I think that that's the projector motto is, when you do less, you get more done. It's quality over quantity. And whether that's in a work relationship or even a personal relationship, I've had this discussion with my partner, and it's just like, do you want quantity? Do you want time with me where I'm not really present, or do you want me to take the time I need to take to be with myself, to let go of what's not me, so that when I do come to you, you have the quality time, my full presence,
Mm.
that I can be in my body. It's just like, I want your quality, D. I want your presence. It's not about the time, it's about the presence. And then that's the beauty of being a projector. And remind me again, what is your profile again in human design?
I'm a
2-4?
2-5.
A 2-5. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you actually have, you mentioned the projection. The 5 and the 2 have that projection. So I don't know if you experienced this, but the way I feel it as a splenic projector, the instincts, when someone wants something from me, and that's the 5. The 5 is like, I project onto you, you're my savior, you
Mm.
can save me, Robin. Like, you're the person I've been looking for. And they project something onto you, and then you can feel, hey, is this projection correct for me or not? Is
Mm.
this a healthy projection? And sometimes it's just like when they do that to me, and it's just like, no, like,
Mm-hmm.
this, I don't know what you want from me, but it's not working. And then also, like you said, when I'm sharing something, I know like, okay, this can trigger people,
Mm-hmm.
and moving through that and knowing that I'm feeling all of that in my body, knowing that, like, even in relationship, it's like 9 out of 10 times when I feel uncomfortable or I feel like something's stuck, it's my partner. She's like, yeah, she laughs. She's like, yeah, it's you're like, I'm feeling some frustration. She's like, yeah. It's like, do you want to, it's for projectors, the questions are open questions, right? The how, when, what. For generators, 7 out of 10 people in the world, it's yeses and nos. Do you want to talk about it? Uh, yes, and asking the questions until we get to the answer. But coming back, how is it for you? How has it been for you experiencing the projections of others, especially as 2-5?
Yeah. And you're a 5-1, is that right?
I'm a 5-1.
A
Yeah.
5-1, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, well, for most of my life, I didn't know.
Mm.
And so I think I'm right now beginning to understand that when I'm around people, what I'm like, that interaction is not them. Like they could go interact with somebody else and it would be a completely different interaction, which is like true for all of us, I think. But I always thought that it was them and that I was sort of the recipient of it and really had no relationality to it at all. It always felt just like it was really coming at me. And now I'm realizing like, oh, it's really this dance that's happening. Like it's back and forth. And so just in the last month, I'm getting really clear. And then I don't know, like the universe or the matrix or whatever is showing me this reflection of what I'm getting clear about, which is people's projections, which also sometimes often feel like invitations, you know, and me saying no. I literally had this experience like a week ago. Somebody said, I want to tell it, like, I have something for you. And the energy felt so penetrating, which maybe this person's a projector, and it just feels like, oh, like I need that there needs to be consent. And so I said no. And then the person did it anyway, like couldn't help themselves and pushed past anyway. And how that felt in my body, feeling that projection. This person doesn't know me, they know me through the podcast or something, but they really don't know me. And so feeling that intrusion without consent, that projection without consent. And I'm starting finally to be aware of all of those subtle energies and that subtlety enough to be like, I don't have to take every invitation that comes. I don't, this projection in particular feels like it has literally nothing to do with me. It's their thing completely. And so I've had some version of that experience come up over and over and over again in the past, month, I would say. And I'm learning so much from it. And the other thing that I really, really want to talk about, and it ties into this, is learning how to communicate as a projector, which is what you were just talking about. These questions, these open questions, which for so many years I didn't know. So I was constantly like poking people with my projector energy, and giving unsolicited advice and seeing so clearly like what the area was that they could grow into or the untapped potential or whatever, and going straight for it without consent and without understanding how to communicate it well, and then ending up getting that reaction back, which is like, fuck right off. Like, I didn't ask. And then a generator next to me would like give the same advice and it would be like, oh yeah, that's actually a pretty good idea, but seeing how, like, learning how people responded so differently. And so I became trauma informed in communication and studied nonviolent communication. And that helped so much. And then I set up a business where people pay me to do that, right? Like it's such an overt invitation that now that feels so much cleaner. But for such a long time, all of that was very messy. Like the projections are very messy. The communication was very messy. My lack of understanding of my penetrating aura. And I still overstep. I still don't have moments where I'm like edge into someone where I shouldn't. But learning those basics of communication was a huge, huge deal for me. Yeah. Did you have experience with that before you kind of knew about this, that people would, or did you always have the kind of weigh in without making people feel like you were looking deeply into their soul without their permission?
Like one of those floodlights from a football stadium or whatever it is. Yeah. Like
Right.
it's just like yeah. I do still, for those, that are listening in, that the human design is really, it's the mechanics of your aura. It's your electromagnetic wiring. And so it's how information and energy comes into your body, how it moves around inside your body, and then how it moves out. And when it comes to that, there are these different types, but projector being about, 1 in 5 people, and that our aura absorbs other auras. It is designed to be seen and recognized by others for its skills and talents, and we are uniquely designed to recognize the skills and talents of others. And we work best one-on-one because we absorb auras. And so when there's another person sitting there, we don't know who we're taking in.
Mm-hmm.
Because when, if you have just one person, you can kind of feel like, okay, this is me and this is them. When there's more, it can get tricky.
Hmm.
And so and also this penetrating part, right? Yes, I've had a lot of people talk to them, and I know I've got the bright blue eyes and I'm this tall person and I look like a Pleiadian. And I'm just like looking straight into someone's soul. And I could just sometimes to see they're just not ready for that.
Hmm.
And that's where the strategy as a projector for life is waiting for the invitation, wait to be recognized for your skills and talents, and then be officially invited to look deeply inside of someone. Now, what I've learned is we can't turn that off as
Mm.
projectors. We can't, when we're with another aura, we mechanically take them in. Now, we can put up energetic shields and all of that to only let in what is right for us, but we're really taking someone in.
Mm.
And the communication bit is huge. Like that's what I do in corporate environments too. It's just, man, if your communication is not good, whether it's a working relationship or a romantic relationship or friendship, everything is communication. It's and think about it too, like, with projectors, because we're so spacious. When you ask a yes and no question, it's open or closed.
Mm.
The energy is like open, closed, yes, no. Whereas like, what do you think about this? Oh wow, I can go anywhere with this one. Or how
Mhm.
do you see this, Robin? You know? And knowing that an open question does nothing for a generator because they're mechanically designed to have their body tell them if they can commit to something or not. And it's the
Mm.
yes or no. So are you like, um, what do you want to eat? Every generator always laughs because they're just like, I can't respond to that. It's like, are you hungry? Yes. Do you want to eat something? Yes. You want to go you want to go get, do you want to go to a restaurant? Yes. Okay. Um, then you can ask, do you know which one? No, so maybe they know, but then the best one is like, okay, do you want to go get some pizza? No. Do you want to get sushi? No. Do you want to get Korean barbecue? Do you want to go to that place we always go to? Yes. Yes. So I want to go there. Food is the best way, I feel, to get to make contact with the generator mechanism of response, which is their mechanic, right? To respond. But to answer your question in terms of the projections, yes, it's a big thing. And one of the things I've read and one of the things I'm experiencing more and more is, and Richard Rudd talks about that. Richard Rudd is the author of the Gene Keys, but also is a human design instructor, and having done it for very many years, he's written books on it. And he has some really interesting articles out there. One of the things he says is like, listen, 99 out of 100 invitations are not going to be correct for the projector. It's like, oh God, we want to help. We want to be seen. Like we want to be able to share our wisdom and for it to be heard. But 99 out of 100 invitations are not correct. And it's not only like a fine, but it's like also like, hey, this is the projector thing. Like, how do I earn a living if I only say yes to one out of 100, solicitations to work with a client? Like, how does that work?
Mhm.
Now I'm splenic and I have my heart center defined. So the spleen instinctively tells me if this is correct or not. And then I can refer to the heart to find out like, hey, what bargain is correct? Like, okay, you're looking for this. Okay, that's your expectation. Okay, I can meet that. That feels good. And this is what I need in return. Okay, great deal, bargain done. That's the tribe bargain.
Mm.
And the instincts, man, it sucks when I get this invitation sometimes. I'm like, oh, I want to help you. And it looks so good on paper, but something in me is telling me this isn't it. And then the recognition, my God, when you're with someone that truly sees you, it's like, Richard Rudd says it's like next to every successful projector, you will find other people. It's like
Mm.
when you're next to that person, it's like something unlocks in you. And I've experienced it, I felt it. I feel it with my buddy that I do two of my buddies. It comes out in different ways. One of them brings out this just being able to be vulnerable and know that it's just like, oh, I'm going to be so heard and held. And the other one, it's about the creative ideas and potentials and all the business ideas and the fun initiatives we can do. And with my partner, it's being able to be vulnerable and for the first time know that no matter how much I stumble, and she says it too, like you're going to disappoint me, and that's okay. That's totally okay. I'm like, thank you for that invitation, by the way. And yeah, and just being able to know that no matter what, I can work on myself within the container of an unconditional, loving container of support and mutual growth. And being seen in that way is just, it's allowed me to open doors in my heart that had been closed for a very long time in
Mhm.
relationship. And they're opening up now. And it feels incredible. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's so wonderful. I'm learning so much. Learning so much about generators being a yes, no. That's really interesting. And then also being recognized,
Mhm.
seeing and being seen for me and for other projectors that I know, a lifetime of not being recognized. Or, I mean, I kind of was going to soften that a little bit, but I just think I'm going to leave it like a lifetime of not being recognized, being in a group of people who don't understand, don't, like for me, I'll just say, I needed time alone. I really needed time alone. And so when my family wanted to go for a hike, they would invite me and I would say, I don't want to. And then I was called lazy. Like that was the projection and the like interjection. It went right in, and I absorbed that and deconditioning from that. And so having things not work, having things not work out, and it be very mysterious and very difficult to understand why that was happening. And then finding out that, like you say, the mechanics of the aura, which I love, and then starting to receive recognition for who I truly am without having to hide, and then exploring into that edge of vulnerability and honesty that you're talking about. Like, oh, honesty. What is it like to really be seen? And then finding really safe people to do that with, and when there's that safety, when there's that container, yeah, that's my experience as well as this new thing can unfold. I'm an emotional projector. So wait for the invitation, wait for the emotional wave. There are lots of things in my system that tell me to wait. And that
Mm.
has been really challenging. As I was always like, I'm always a little bit jealous of splenic authorities, or a sacral authority where it's like, yes, no, yes. But leaning into the experiment. And that's another thing I really love about this is my understanding is even Ross said, like, this is an experiment. This is not prescriptive. It's not like, here's your design and this is, you have to live this way. And it's like, no, it's so complex and there's so many moving parts. I'm a split definition. So as I move into the experiment more and more, and I have an open route. So I also feel a lot of like urgency to, especially if I'm around generators, to go and produce. And so again, deconditioning from that and finding all this spaciousness and then watching, as you said, like the world change and respond differently. And there's this ease about it. But it's wild how deep the conditioning goes for me and how much I've had to lean into that trust that you were talking about. And I also have a defined heart. And so I love that pulse of energy that you're talking about. It's just not the way the rest of the world works. Generators are like 9 to 5, do the thing, run out of energy by the end of the day. They feel great. I run out of energy at like 10 o'clock in the morning and then want to, take a break. And so, yeah, anyway, I'm like being basked in your projector recognition. So I'm just like this.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. There's so much there, and it's interesting because um, you know, and really to be correct, human design is a science of form, right? And aura coming with the form. Um, and being in this form, being in the projector form. Now, projectors, there are 7 decision-making strategies in the human design system. The reflector being the rarest, the 1% of the population or so have their own unique decision-making strategy, and then there's 6 left. And the projector actually can have 5 different ones.
Mm.
So we are very versatile. And it's interesting because, I feel like, especially like the projectors, this is running joke. And my manifesting generator friend always, or partner always says this too. She's like, yeah, all your projectors are always like, I wish I had this energy and this and that. It's like, well, what do you want to be a generator? And I'm like, no, we actually like being the projector, which is huge because I had a chat last weekend with someone who found out they're a projector and they were just in tears
Mm.
because they're just like, I've been trying. And they're in their, I think they're 33, they're in their early 30s. And it's just like, man, I'm exhausted.
Hmm.
And that's the comments I get on my channel for the most part are, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of, there's so much beauty too, right? And every type has its own challenges. Like how many generators are using their beautiful generative energy and life force energy is what it really is, doing things they don't want to do
Hmm.
because just because they can do so much. They're like, yeah, sure. Like my body says no, but I'll say yes. And then you were saying like, oh, I like, this funny projector must be must be nice. But for me, it's like I can't wait.
Mm.
I have to trust so fully in the now, and sometimes I don't really hear it. So it's like, um, oh, hello, what are we doing? Like, where are we going? And it can be very quiet. Like I made a short, and this is something they told us in the education is that there are three awarenesses in the human design system. One is instinctual awareness, where the splenic authority is. So, as being a splenic authority, splenic projector, that's where mine sits. You have mental awareness and emotional awareness. Of course, the emotional one being where the solar plexus is, where the emotional authority sits. And they say that the splenic authority, intuitive, instinctual messages of the intelligent system that communicates, hey, where the dangers are, and it keeps you alive from moment to moment, is very quiet. They
Mm.
say it's like a little kid tugging on your pants, like on your pant leg, like, hey, don't go left, go right. It's so quiet, and then the thoughts are twice as loud as that, and then emotions are twice as loud as thoughts. So if you are just like, and if you're splenic, by definition, you are going to be susceptible to conditioning through emotions of others.
Mm.
I'm you are the one because you're emotional. You're broadcasting emotions, just like 46 to 48% of people in the world. I'm the other half that's going to take your emotions and amplify them and feel like they're mine
Mm.
and potentially identify them as mine, right? And so it's like I have to clear those out and be in my body so strongly, and then I need to listen to the voice. And you know what it is? It's just like when you ask, your guides or spirit guides or God, you ask the question and you get the answer that you're not looking for.
Mm.
You get an answer you don't. It's like, oh, I remember so clearly I was in relationship with someone. We had this beautiful interaction and connection together, and I brought it to the airport. And I just, in my third eye, just saw this book close. Like, that's it. I was like, "Eek, I don't know if I want that. Why would I want to end on this? Like, we ended on the most beautiful note. Why would I want to end it here? And it just goes to show. And then I had to trust it and I had to let it go. And of course, I fought it a little bit, but just a little bit. But then knowing like, hey, we are guided, we are loved, and there's that trust and faith for you too to slow down, right?
Mhm.
With the heart center to slow down when you are in that down pulse, the emotional wave that you have to wait for clarity. You can never really make a decision in the now, and knowing that time actually protects you
Mm.
because it's going to give you the right decision at the right time. And the spleen does the same thing, right? It does. When I hear it, it's amazing. It's almost like my body just tells me where to go. There's
Mm.
almost this little voice that just like, it guides me. And so whatever your authority is, it is what you said before. It is coming back to the body. And what that means too is like the somatic work, right? We keep our trauma isn't just in our body from this lifetime. It's the epigenetics too, right?
Mhm.
Again, being reminded today of this experiment with rats that they did, that they had these rats in a cage and they opened the cage door. And whenever the rats approached the door, they would get shocked. And so they did that a couple of times. They got shocked and they stopped. And then those rats had offspring. And without experiencing that experience of being shocked, the offspring put in a different cage, same experiment, door open, they never approached the open door.
Mhm.
So how much trauma have we taken on in our DNA? Where are we limiting our expression of spirit, of universal love for self and others? And where are we conditioned? And the human design shows you where we're most conditioned, and where are we open? Like, are we thinking things that don't matter to us that matter to other people? Are we, trying to prove ourselves, right? With the root is a big one, man. I was talking to a generator too yesterday, and he has an open root, and he's just like always in a hurry. He said, even my mom was like, always in a hurry. He's always in a hurry.
Yeah.
And I feel it. And it's the adrenals, right? So it hits the adrenals. And it's just like, okay, let me just relax, delegate the things, and have this healthy balance between actually resting, give myself permission to rest and nap, and being okay with what you mentioned before, it being called lazy is, I read it somewhere, it's the core wound of the projector.
Mm.
I had two people in the last couple months that I've been living with and working with. They're like, yeah, D, you're not really a worker.
Mm.
You're not really a worker. But they're like, but this is what you're great at. Sitting with people one on one and helping them figure out who they are and, helping them find their voice. So that's the thing for a projector too, whether you are a female projector or a male projector, the projector by definition is a female archetype. It's a receptive archetype. And it requires spaciousness and ease and trust and play. 4 hours of work a day is like that's kind of what we've got. But we can get a lot done in those 4 hours if we focus, right? And then 4 hours of study and 4 hours of play.
I love that. Thank you. And you helped me decondition from my desire to have fast responses from the splenic as if it doesn't come with its own entire way of being and information coming in. And also as you were talking, I was reminded of how important the emotional body is and is going to be, I think, in 2027. And that humanity is kind of coming into this new emotional body. And I want to talk about that too. But um yeah, 4 hours of work, 4 hours of study, 4 hours of play. And the deconditioning, I'm curious, what's play like? Like, was that difficult to get back to?
That's a very good question. And yes, it was. And it's funny because I talk about play a lot now in general, but also in the men's work that I'm doing. It's like, how can we deal with the most serious shit that life throws at us, but do it in the most playful way possible? So
Mm.
what does that mean, play? Um, One is just kind of embracing the weirdness, like let my freak flag fly high. Like one of the things I with my friend here, and where we go to the Costco, I was like, "You want to get in the cart?" And she just spent the entire. I just carted her around the store, and some people they look away, and others are just like they love it. Not that it's about what other people think, but you can see like, wow, like this is fun. This is fun. And then in Costa Rica, I would meet up with my three hermanitos, my three brothers, and two of them are have kids. They have, their fathers. I'm just saying that because sometimes when we get into parenthood, I feel like the seriousness sets in. But I can even say without being a parent, it sets in. And we just like bring a ball and a frisbee and we just make up games on the beach. And we played like kids. Uh, Easy examples like the four of us will come up to waves on this little, in this little beach town in Costa Rica. And it's like, okay, one by one, call it out. Okay, we're going under the wave, through the wave, or over the wave. It's like, okay, call it out, over, jumping over, or, just making up stuff. And I think it's this getting back to your 5-year-old self
Mhm.
and knowing that magic's real. And now you're an adult and you don't have someone telling you what you can and can't do. It's just you if you're doing it. And that's where the deconditioning comes in. It's just being goofy and laughing and just like I even the other day I was like I used to love video games and I've been telling myself no, don't do that, it's a waste of time. And it's just like no, I just want to play this thing, so I'm fired up my game from 1998 that I used to play when I was like 10 years old, and I'm just like having a ball,
Mm.
giving myself permission because it's and also discovering like how do I actually play. And that's what you're asking, like I want to ask you, what is your relationship with play and what does play mean to you?
It is newly emerging. I don't have a relationship with it. It's it's been very serious around here for quite a while. It's been like a lot of, just trauma. I'm 8 years sober. Before that, my life was very messy. I had very painful relationships, very painful experiences, uh, a lot of things not working out, a lot of running, a lot of numbing from the world. It all felt too much for me. And so then came this kind of initiation into my feeling body, my emotional body, which is what I was pushing away, was the emotional body. And that initiation came through grief. So it was this really deep grief, which is an alchemical journey like no other that I had ever experienced. And I really had to go down and like touch bottom, like really experience that, build capacity and space in my emotional body to feel as much as I could, which I was I didn't know that I was terrified of it, but that's what I was terrified of. That's what I had been pushing away, just sensation, this feeling body. And now after several years of building that capacity, it's like, oh, joy. That also, now there's space for that. Now there's space for joy. Now there's space for play. Now there's space for what I call life herself, this like vital life force energy that I can feel now, and it can move through me, and I'm allowing it, but it's very, very new. So I guess to answer that question, like dance, I used to do like Ashtanga yoga and, do the 90 minutes, and you place your foot exactly here and you go exactly here and you do it, and your breath is exactly this. And now it's like my body just really doesn't. I mean, I love it. So much beauty in Ashtanga yoga. It's part of my lineage, but my body doesn't want to do that. My body wants to dance. So my physical practice now is dance, and that's igniting something that feels much closer to play. Yeah. Thank you for asking me.
And thank you for sharing that. And actually, you asked me that actually dancing and singing and
Mm,
actually picking up a guitar and learning how to play it, like that's been play. Like I picked it up and just played every day, get
mm,
past that frustrating part and just be able to play. But dance, that's a huge thing for many people. And last year, my goodness, like this year has been intense, this last 12 months. It's been a lot going on for many people. I feel like we're all in a fast track right now.
mhm,
Last year too, just had this amazing dance session with friends up in a house somewhere, just a little group of people, a little bit of cacao for the heart opener, a little bit of mushrooms as well. Not that you need any of those things to be able to dance. 'Cause my thing is always, if I can't dance sober, then something's up.
mhm,
But that just like it lit me up for days.
mhm.
My heart was just like the dancing, shaking it out. Um, Another thing that came up, you were talking about grief. Grief has been big. Last year, I was literally crying every day, not even knowing why I was crying, like every day for months, just crying,
Mm.
crying, crying, crying. And people around me were doing the same. And then anger came. The anger is still there. Sacred anger.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm curious to hear what your relationship is with anger and how you've been and what it means to you, where I find you now.
Mm. I'm so like both enjoying being on the receiving end of your questions because it's so lovely, and also wanting to give that back to you. So yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting that you said that, because anger has been, I call it rage. Like I'm
Oh yeah.
going straight to rage. Yeah, it's like anger, yes, but it's like this rage. And I have a framework that has developed over this journey when grief became this doorway. And the framework is that this is going down into the underworld, into the things that have been repressed, pushed away. A lot of it has to do with the feminine, just because the overculture is, very
Mhm.
much on a masculine track. So reclaiming these things in the underworld that have been repressed and pushed away, grief is huge, and rage is huge. And so I got really, really good at grief. I hate to say that. I don't know if you ever get good at grief, but I became able to bear it.
Mhm.
I became able
Mhm.
to bear it and not shut down. I had moments where it became sort of psychedelic or another state of consciousness or something. Like it's so powerful. It's such a surrender, and it's just incredible. And so I became able to bear that. And I really pushed rage off to I was like, I can't, I don't even know how to touch this. I don't know. It seems so damaging. I'm afraid of it. I'm very afraid of it. And it's just such an interesting thing. Like grief was a portal to joy.
Mhm.
And this access to life force energy, which is for me, another name for that is sexual energy. Honestly, it's
Mhm.
just like, oh, my body, like, oh yeah, I have a body. I have all these sensations and feelings, and that has been repressed and shoved into the underworld. So as that comes online, then the rage is arriving, and it's like, what do I do with that? It's very dangerous. I've been around masculine rage, and it's terrifying. And also women, from the overculture aren't really supposed to get angry. You're not really, and maybe men as well. Maybe that's true for men as well, but uh it feels still very taboo to me. So feeling it, expressing it, finding ways to do it that isn't harmful. So I'm not trying to hurt someone else, or I'm not trying to dump it on someone, but letting it move through my body. I'm learning that it's also a portal. Like rage is a portal to like this. I don't know it yet. It's not fully in my body yet, but it seems to be a portal to power.
I was really curious to hear because like I did a couple podcasts and really sitting with this, and I love to just say grief is a gateway to joy. It's a
Mm,
gateway to an open heart, and anger is a gateway to power, and not force, but power.
amazing. I have chills.
Yeah, me too. I'm feeling
Is got to the
too.
same we got to the
Yeah.
same place. It's amazing. Yeah, love it.
Yeah. And like so yeah, so the word, yeah, power, and then you dropped it, and it's beautiful. Like even when you said it, it's like,
Mm,
and it is that. It's the and I felt that a lot in my life. Like there's a lot of anger
mm,
in me. And I don't really know if it's mine or if it's what I pick up because I feel so much what people feel. A lot of times this past 12 months, I found that I cry and it's not my tears. It's
mm,
the person I'm talking to. Because I'm like, "Ooh, what if I feel my heart all of a sudden?" And then like 5 seconds later, the other person bursts into tears, you know? So so I'm guessing I must have picked up the anger too, just like a lot of us do, especially when we're so open to other people. And there's just the anger of saying yes when we want to say no,
mm,
not standing with our boundaries, speaking negatively to ourselves within our own head. Like I know that where I go in psychedelic experiences where I disconnect from my body's screaming the whole
mm,
time. It just screams like full body scream. And then you're mentioning the grief, like that one is a very interesting one. I can deal with anger.
mm,
It's the grief sometimes. Like I feel it in my heart and it wants to open and I hold it back
mm,
because I don't know that space as well. But when I do go there and I feel the when you cry so hard that like no sound comes out of your mouth,
mm.
that one,
Yeah.
that one clears the heart. And it's just like, then like afterwards, it's like, oh my God, there's so much space for joy. The anger, it's fire, right? So it's like, what are you going to do with the fire? Are you just going to burn stuff? And it makes me laugh because then, I'm really learning about the cycles with my partner right now. When she's luteal, she's like, I don't know if I just want to go outside and burn the world down to the ground or if I need to get a snack from the fridge. It's like, like, what do I, and her poetry, my goodness, I'm like, well, that's that fire. That's that. I'm like, oh, don't want to mess with that, whoever that is in you, like that is. And it's the same with anger for me. It's like it is life force energy and it's speaking truth. That's a
Mm,
big way. Anger just wants to be spoken. And the idea is like to not make it destructive, but make it constructive. It's also just like this confidence. It's that male archetype, the that we all have in us, that the general that can be like, okay, you go over there, you go over there, you move forward, no hesitation, confidence in the now, knowing that this is what you say and it's happening.
mm,
There's no room for hesitation.
yeah.
And that's where a lot of my anger wants to go because it's when I'm on shaky ground that I'm just like, yeah, that's when I get angry because I hesitate and I doubt, and I'm just like, I just want to scream, and I don't even know who I'm screaming at. So
Yeah.
that's where I go with the grief leads to joy and anger leads to power.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Yeah. And I love that. How can it be constructive instead of destructive? And also, I'm like feeling as you're saying that, I'm just feeling all these things that want to be said, like all these things that want to be spoken, you know? It's really interesting. And what's wonderful is that because of grief, like because of that space that you were talking about, as that beautiful, like felt presence and the image of the cry with no sound, and then the space that happens after that for joy. Because of that space, I'm not afraid of, like, I'm very confident that anger and rage have something to teach. That it's an energy. Like all these things are energy, and we've labeled them as good and bad and all of these things, but it's this really, really powerful energy. So I feel like an edge of courage, acceptance, willingness to kind of tread in those areas because of that framework you brought. So thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And the last piece I just wanted to add to that is when you look at the Hawkins scale of emotional states and the frequency they're at, anger is actually quite high up there.
Mm,
Like anger in it is a gateway to love, really. If we because anger leads to courage and leads to us doing the things, setting the boundaries we need to set that we maybe haven't been setting, and having being able to say, this is my boundary, and if you cross it, this is the consequence. I'm just
mhm.
letting you know that this is what I'm gonna have to enforce if you cross this boundary, and then
Yeah.
enforce it when it happens, and having the confidence to know that you're going to do it when it happens. That in essence is that life force energy channeled through strength and anger, like having that undertone, but it's not out to destroy whatsoever. It's out to
Mm, mm.
build healthy boundaries so that we can also build healthy relationships.
I
So
love it.
just what I wanted to come through.
Yeah. No, I love it so much. I'm always really happy when somebody sets a boundary with me,
Mm.
even if it's not my jam, right? Like it doesn't feel like it has anything to do with me, but when people set a boundary, or if I say, can I reflect on that? And they say, no, I'm going to sit with it. I'm like, yeah, yay, good for you. Like I am so
Yeah.
excited. I get it's like, yes, yes, I feel that for myself, speaking it and setting it feels, I'm not as clear on it, but it's been really interesting because just lately I've been wanting to do a podcast episode called The Audacity, like the audacity of these people, coming at me and telling, and they're crossing my boundaries. And it's like that fire, that strength to do like with total, I'm not mad at anybody. It's not about like, it's just this clarity of like, that's a no, that's a
Hmm.
no. And that feels really good. So I can feel kind of the juiciness of exploring all that, without being terrified of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really that the vision of Athena, or just that, that warrior archetype. Instead of standing with the spear like this, pointed at someone, you have the spear next to you. You're
Mm,
just like, hey, no.
love
Like
that.
you're not afraid. You know that if you have to point it at someone, you will, but you're also empowering them. Like you said, that's the beautiful thing with
Mm,
boundaries. It's empowering, like, thank you. Because it sucks if you have to guess if you're crossing someone's boundary or not because they're not being clear with you.
mhm, mhm.
And that's a lesson for all of us too, right? To be clear in our boundaries. It's freedom for us and for everybody else that's interacting with us. So
I love it.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it. So I will keep you just a little bit longer if that's okay.
Sure.
Very curious about your framework, perceptions, intuition about 2027.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that question. I want to look into it again. I've read, Ra Uru, who has his prophecy. I think it's even called The Prophecy for 2027. And having read it and also understanding that, you know, there will be a strength in the human design chart. The should be is it the 1949, I believe. It's it's basically this community channel.
Mm.
This sensitivity to the social needs of others and having the resources to be able to meet those needs, this communal energy is no longer going to be in the collective. And anybody born after 2027 will not have that energy. It would have to come from the physical presence of the people that have it at the moment currently. And that's really going to lead, if you think about that, like the structures, the communal structures that hold us in place, particularly the larger governmental ones, we're already seeing that crumbling because we're moving from having 400 years of the cross of planning in the human design, which is all about institutions and growth. And this idea of like the institution will take care of me to now going to the cross of the sleeping phoenix starting in 2027. Of course, this energy is already here. It's just like with a full moon, we feel the energy before the full moon, right? So we are very much in it. And it's funny, even for me, the age of Aquarius, like even the fact that the first time there was light, when they lit up New York for the first time with electricity, like that's I even get chills saying like that's the age of Aquarius, the age of reason. Like we're already in the age of Aquarius, very much so. And this 2027 is the ending of a very long cycle. We're at the end of the precession of the equinoxes too, right? Where we are entering a whole new paradigm where things are going to go very quick. And the veil between the spiritual world and the physical world is going to be thinning as well. And with that, everything is going to come up into the surface. Within ourselves, too, we're feeling it. Everybody's feeling the crunch. And luckily, we're not alone. But as a collective, we're going to feel the crunch. And it's going to mean many things. I don't think it's going to be an outright, like, cities on fire type of thing. I think it's going to be a gradual and continual crumbling of the systems that we have. And at the same time, new systems are popping up already.
Hmm.
There are businesses that are doing things differently. It's just this, it's something that we get to imagine for ourselves. Do we want to focus on what's not working or do we want to focus on what is working? But to focus on what is working, you have to acknowledge and see and witness and accept what is not working. It's just not focusing on that. It's like, okay, I understand this, let's do it differently. One of the big things that we're talking about is instead of having this reliance on the group and the community and the tribe, it's more personal empowerment. It's about the abundance of spirit in yourself. It's about you stepping into your gifts and then stepping into community in a horizontal way. It's like, I want to be in community, but it's not about you sacrificing yourself for the community. It's about you playing your perfect role within community and be supported. So it's like it's still tribe, but it's built differently. It's not the tribe informing the individual, it's the individual informing the tribe, the way that I see it. Now we're also going to be going into a different, our physiology is always evolving and going more into being able to communicate with each other through the solar plexus. To me, that's telepathy. Human design also talks about a completely new being entering the world, the brave child. And that's a very interesting thing. That's like science, that's straight up science fiction, right? This idea that when you bring three of these babies or these kids together that on their own are completely look like they're developmentally challenged.
Hmm.
When you bring them together, their consciousness goes to something that is, how to say this, combines all of their auras, and that's from where they're operating. They don't even have to talk to each other. They can communicate because they're one being. And I find that very interesting. So what I'm seeing is, and how I see 2027 is the projector will come to the forefront for sure, because we're here to help people be in their power, in their strength, be able to ask the questions so that they can get to their truth. That's the thing with the generator. Often that's why we generator wants to live in response and is designed to live in response, because that's how they get to their truth. And particularly the projector is perfectly suited for that. We're meant to be the leaders of the future because think about this, our leadership needs to be invited.
Mm.
If we're not doing right by the people that we are serving, it falls apart. It's like, okay, well, we're pulling our invitation. You are no longer a leader. There is nothing you can do energetically. So that's the beauty. It's it's a it's a much more secure system built on mutual growth. Having horizontal hierarchies, as I mentioned before, instead of vertical hierarchies. So it doesn't matter if someone's a CEO or not. You can talk to them because they're a human being and we're all in this together. Transparency, openness in communication, openness in business, How can we continue to prosper in a way that benefits everyone, including the planet? How can we
Mm.
do things differently? That's exciting. That's exciting, right? Like, who needs fast fashion? You buy a fast fashion piece of clothing and you wash it twice, it doesn't fit anymore. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So how can we do all of those things differently? How can we clean our oceans? We are not overpopulated. That's an absolute BS story that we're told. We are not overpopulated. We are not. Our systems suck.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Love it.
people are not the problem. Our systems suck. So it's reimagining the systems. It's reimagining how we relate to each other in business, in relationship, and to self. And knowing that if we don't take ownership of our stuff, no one will. No one's going to come and save us, but we don't have to do it alone. Individually, we have people that we can sit with, whether it's women's circles, men's circles, having a supportive work environment, especially as projectors. Let's focus on quality over quantity. How can we do that? Right. And a generator, okay, they might be working the 10 hours, but if they love what they do, my goodness, like it's amazing to see. It's amazing, right? And they love it. So how can we set this up to where we can be excited about the future and think more creatively, think outside the box, and not be afraid to speak up that, hey, what's not working is not working. Okay, let's build the new.
Thanks so much to Dee for the wonderful conversation. You can find more information about his work assisting his Soul Tribe clients, both individuals and businesses, in unlocking their true potential through transformative coaching by checking the show notes. And thanks so much to Morgan Jenks for our beautiful soundscapes. If you would like to book a one-on-one session with me or learn more about my group offerings or any of my work or buy my audiobook, if you want to help a girl out, please visit honeyheart.org.